So good evening. And tonight we have Jay, and Jay from Greenworks and the Green Diary. Good evening, Jay. How are you?
Hi, I'm great, thanks. What about you? You good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. So
Good.
tonight, Jay is interviewing me for World Water Day. And what I'm going to do is just hand it straight over to Jay. You can catch Jay's podcast at the Green Diary on Buzzsprout. And here's a link in the thing below, and you can catch that. That'll be live on World Water Day as well. And also, Jay has got some other really interesting podcasts about all sorts of things about sustainability, both in Malta and also a little bit outside Malta as well, I think, as well, if I remember rightly. So that's wonderful. And Jay, it's all yours.
Yes. So thank you, Phil. So just to give everybody context, the Green Diary is a project of mine, just trying to basically embrace sustainability and encourage people that they can live an imperfect, sustainable life. It's just little steps, to a bigger cause. And obviously it's World Water Day, and that's really important. Water is everything. And that's why I've asked Phil, obviously part of or founder of Tap Water Malta, and double P, by the way, just if anybody's Googling that. We're just going to have a conversation basically around water and look at ways that we can be better around water, and obviously we'll talk about that soon. So just to kick off, I guess let's talk about water. So everybody talks about, in terms of sustainability, waste, pollution. They talk about planting more trees, but with water, what is the crisis there? Do you know, or do you have a good idea about what the main things why the news talks about water?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I forgot to say at the beginning, I really like the living sustainably imperfectly.
Yes.
Because it's really important with everything we do, is that if we try and be perfect to it, it's a really huge challenge. But if we just make little changes and do it imperfectly, then it's really great. And that's definitely the same with water.
Exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah. So water is really important to us because after all, our bodies are like 60% water on average. Some parts of our body are actually 70 and 80% of water, but other parts a little bit less. But even, there's lots of water even inside our bones. And water is this amazing solvent that basically enables nutrients and information to get around bodies, plants, humans, animals, and all sorts of things. So it's everywhere. So it's vital. And kind of we all know that, but because it's just doing its job all the time, I think we sometimes forget just how important it is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And even on the planet, it's like 70%, isn't it? It's funny, it's 70% for us, but on the planet, we're 70% water. That's quite funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Even old mountains, we think of mountains and, stuff like that, but, most of it's ocean. And I think it's important to remember that. But scarcity is the major issue, and it's scarcity and quality, of course. So quality, I'm going to set aside. Scarcity is probably one of the biggest issues, and it's an up and coming issue as we start to talk about it much more. I mean, I think the UNICEF's or the UN UNICEF it was had suggested that 4 billion people are without water for a month or more.
4 billion.
4 billion.
Oh my gosh!
Right, it was a huge number.
6 billion people in the 7 billion people in the world. That's crazy.
And 2 billion people live now with water scarcity.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a big proportion. And the data is getting worse because water scarcity is becoming more of an issue as the population grows and we consume more. Yeah. And so it's one of these issues that's up and coming.
So if we break down water scarcity, it's basically having so is it access to water, basically having access to clean water?
Yes.
Yeah.
And here in Malta, we turn on the tap. So we don't think about it too much.
True.
Obviously, when the water suddenly goes off, a bit like the power, there's a big hullabaloo and this is terrible. But we're actually quite privileged from that point of view. There are lots of people that have to pick up containers of water and walk sometimes for hours to go and get water and then come back again.
That's
and
very
they get
true.
dirty water and they come back again. So I was obviously brought up in the UK, and it's the same thing. You turn on the tap and you never even think about it.
You never think about it. No, I'm from the UK as well, and you don't think about it at all. You don't even think about the systems that happen for you to actually be able to turn your tap on. You don't think about it at all.
And I'd never thought about it before I got involved with tap water. Never thought about it at all. I was just a normal, totally average consumer.
Yeah.
Doing all the things that I now, would suggest that people at least think about.
Yeah.
So it's quite difficult because it's habitual. It's very much habitual. You don't think about washing your car and how much water it might use out of a hose pipe.
Yeah.
Okay, in some of the summers in the UK, we had our water bans.
Yes, that's true.
Where you weren't allowed to use the hose pipe.
Yeah,
Couldn't
that's
water
true.
your grass.
Yes, yeah. Or even my habit is that, which is bad, I shouldn't even be saying it here, but I have to be honest here. I'll literally have some water from bottles, which I'll talk about in a second, and then I'll leave it on the side, and I won't touch it, and I'll forget about it. And then the next day I'll be like, oh, I don't know if that's good water, it's been out. And then but now I do feed my plants with it now. I don't do it as often as I used to. I used to be quite bad with that. And I think when you talk about the average consumer, I think a lot of people do these kind of habits, not necessarily that one, but different types of habits that kind of make it like we don't care about water that much. It's a bad thing.
It's kind of like a vicious circle, because we just turn on the tap. If we had to walk 2 hours to a standpipe to get dirty water and then come back again, we would think about water a lot more.
Yes.
But of course we don't. We just turn on the tap, and so it's like even if Water Services Corporation here in Malta starts to encourage us to think about our consumption, it's actually quite a challenge for an already affluent society, which we are in terms of water. And then people talk about scarcity, and it's like, what do you mean scarcity? I'll turn on the tap. It doesn't look scarce to me.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So it's quite a challenge, sort of, I think, educationally, and also for ourselves as consumers, because we want to make it relatively easy to think about a few small things, I think.
Yeah. And just to be clear, because obviously it's just for people that maybe just need it broken down even further, maybe just to understand it, because you can't take water from the sea because it's seawater, and fresh water systems around the world, there's less of them, isn't there? Like from the mountains, from like the lakes and stuff. So people can't just get water as they please. It has to be through a system or a well system as well. Or system. Yeah.
And of course, here in Malta, we don't have rivers and mountains and streams and stuff like that. So a lot of our drinking water, it used to come from our groundwater resources. So aquifers, natural aquifers that are inside the limestone and sitting above sea level underground. They're quite depleted nowadays and also quite contaminated with nitrates and herbicides and things like that, as well as some sort of chemical contaminants. But nitrates is the main one.
So we can't use them at all?
We do use them. It's less now. So we get most of our water in Malta, we get it from reverse osmosis systems.
Right.
So there's big plants. There's 4 big plants in Chikawa, Hondoc, Pembroke, and Arlapsi. 4 big plants, and Hondoc was the last one. In Gozo. and they're producing, I think it's 35 million cubic litres of water every year, which is 60% of our water use, approximately. I think this year it'll be 66%, and then a third will be groundwater. So reverse osmosis has no minerals in it. So reverse osmosis strips everything out and leaves you with clean water. But then you have to put something back into it to make its pH a little bit more in the middle. Because reverse
More
osmosis
alkaline?
is acidic. So more alkaline.
Yeah.
So you put lime back in the water, and then that stops it corroding the pipes as well. And then you put chlorine in to make sure you don't get bacteria. And then you blend it with the groundwater sources.
Right. Okay.
And that's why in Malta we use reverse osmosis, because the consumption patterns have gone up, the groundwater contamination has gone up, so you've been able to use it less. And also as the groundwater's gone down, it's more salty, so you can't use it as much. So there's all this sort of thing. And in Malta, we've never collected rainwater, really. So rainwater off buildings and things like that, there aren't many gutters or anything like that. It goes straight in the road, and then that goes to the sea.
It's true. Yeah.
So, or it goes to be processed and then goes to the sea. So now, interesting enough, those conversations are starting. Oh, maybe we should use rainwater, and that's starting to happen. So water collection systems are starting to happen now.
Yeah.
To alleviate the high cost of the energy used in reverse osmosis production.
Right. Okay. So with that in light of what you just said, do you feel there is a crisis in Malta? Obviously, you said we're affluent in terms of water, but when I came over here in a year and a half-ish ago now, coming up to 2 years, so still quite green. But I was told you must drink from bottles. And that was really not natural to me, because I always used to drink water from tap in England. So I got really paranoid, and actually I can see them here. I do recycle all my bottles, but I don't like it. Every time I lift it up, I think, oh, do I have to do this? It's really bad for the environment. But I've literally been told, don't drink the tap water here. You have to drink bottled water. And of course, you've probably had those conversations over and over again, given what you do. But does that mean there's a crisis, or what do you take of that? It's a lot.
I think it's really interesting, because I was like you when I first came. I came here like 14 years ago, and I was surprised that you didn't just turn that up and drink the water. So I think culturally, as far as I've seen, it's quite normal to have plastic bottles for drinking water and not to drink the tap water. That's just absolutely normal. Is it valid? Well, it depends where you look. Under EU regulations and monitoring standards, Malta water fits WHO and EU standards. And has hugely improved over the past 10 to 15 years. It's been huge investment.
So safe to drink, number one, safe to drink, obviously.
According to the regulations.
Yeah.
The other side of it, and it's one of these things that a lot of the packaged food that you see is allegedly safe to eat. Right? Yeah. Whether it is or not, then starts to get into how much research you've done and personal choice and lifestyle styles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in fact, it's no different to water.
Yeah.
If you go to a fast food joint and have food, there's nothing that you'll never think, oh, is it safe?
Yes, it's true.
Right, and that's a bit the same with the water thing. It starts to get how much research I've done and have you ever looked at it. There were some interesting scares in Malta's water history. With high incidences of trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids, which are both, they're a byproduct of the chlorination system. So you add chlorine to water to make it safe from bacteria, but then chlorine reacts with some of the organic components in water that then produces these other things that you don't want. And they're linked to bladder cancers and stuff like that. Now, there used to be much higher levels of those in the water. and there are now lower levels of it in the water. But it's one of these things where if there's lower levels, it's whether you don't want any or whether you're just happy with the lower levels. And what I love about the water in Malta is if you post something on Facebook, for instance, and you said, in some expat group or something, can I drink the water in Malta?
Yeah.
You'll get like 1,500 different opinions, of which they're strongly, nothing will ever happen to you, it'll all be fine, to don't do it, it's the last thing you'll ever do, and everything in between. And at the end of the day, you just choose.
But I feel like it's a toss-up, right? You said about low levels of maybe cancerous elements, and I don't know about the actual chemical reaction. That's quite interesting. But in addition to that, I worry now about microplastics,
Right.
And me drinking from the water bottle, continuously, I think to myself, am I just drinking plastic essentially? Because even though we don't want to, somebody might say, oh, I don't, because if you leave your plastic bottles out in the sun, that's when it like melts maybe, and like more microplastics are probably bouncing around in the water. So, but I always think about the process before that. How long has it been sitting in the water's been sitting in the water bottle for? How was it prepared? I always think about that. So I'm not exactly enjoying drinking from water bottles. That's what basically I'm saying. But I feel like it's a lesser of two evils. Kind of.
Yeah. But that's how plastic bottled drinking water has been marketed to us. And that's certainly the case in Malta. Yeah. Because for the bottling companies, don't drink the tap water, you can't, is culturally very strong here still. And that's very powerful for them and their marketing. And I call them, not that I've got anything against them, because they're doing a job, they're in a business to sell things, but they are selling you 0.0003 of a cent of tap water wrapped in a plastic casing and telling you that it's okay. And the latest research in January that was issued by Columbian University, by the University of Columbia, suggested that there's 250,000 nanoplastic particles per litre of water coming from a plastic bottle.
Oh my gosh.
Right, so we're already ingesting about 5 grams, which is a credit card a week, of microplastics. So in our food, in our water, and all sorts of other things, because and the interesting thing is there's no regulation on microplastics in drinking water. So there's regulations for all sorts of other things, right? But there's no regulations for microplastics, and it's a huge growth area of research. We still don't know 100% of all the disadvantages of having it in your body or ingesting it. There is some research that's starting to come out that it passes the blood-brain barrier, that there's endocrine disruptors, which are plasticizers used in making plastic, and they're very disruptive and not very good for you. So the research is really quite early. But to me, drinking plastic is not what I intended to do. So it doesn't sound great to me.
No.
But there's microplastics probably in the drinking water as well. Right? Because why wouldn't there be? Because it's coming from the sea. We know the sea in round Malta is full of microplastics. Well, not full, but there's plenty of them. Reverse osmosis membranes use polypropylene plastic around it to protect the membranes. That's quite common. And some of the research that came out in January suggested that that's some of the nanoparticles that are coming through, right? Which is not great, but there are filters that can clean that up. So yes, microplastics is a big thing. Other chemicals leaching from plastic bottles. There's been some scientific research done on that. The plasticizers, which is the chemicals that are added to plastics to make them flexible. When put in the sun, when heated up, right? There's research to suggest that it does get into the water. Some of the research I read was they couldn't even identify what the chemicals were. That's a scary thing.
That is scary.
They didn't even know what they are. They just know they're not water, and they're in there. And there's somebody pointed out to me, well, is that the same in all the fizzy drinks? And well, probably. I mean, one would think so.
Yeah, of course.
It wouldn't be a surprise. But most of the research is coming out on water bottles because, you know, and then you get into the recycling argument. Well, it's okay because I recycle all my plastic bottles.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's my a good thing, like a good.
And now you can get money back, right?
Yes.
You take your bottles back and they give you 10 cents back that you've already given them, but they then give you back. But you know, so which is great. And BCRS has made a huge difference to people because it's encouraged them to recycle.
Yes.
So you know, I never fault that. That's great. But I think I come from the point of view is like, well, don't use them in the first place, and then you won't have to recycle them, because there's only a percentage that get recycled. You can't recycle PET that many times because it gets less useful.
You're saying that when we recycle the bottles, only a percentage actually gets recycled, and so not all of so the entire bottle probably isn't recycled.
Well, you've got different types of plastic. You've got the top and you've got the bottle.
The bottle.
The bottle can only really be downcycled, so it can be made into a bench or a chair,
right?
Or it can be spun as yarn, and then you get polyester clothing out of it, which then, when you put in your washing machine, delivers microfibers and nanoplastics all around the world in your sewage water. You know, great. So. It's like, and then you've got all the energy that is consumed in the recycling process, plus the collecting and the delivering of the bottles. That's why, top of your R's is like refuse rather than recycles actually at one before the bottom. I think rot is after it, isn't it? Depending on which fives you've got. But, refuse, if you don't need it, then it would be better not to use it. And I think that's where we come from, or where I come from, like from the plastic bottle journey.
Yes.
And if perhaps you didn't use it and you just turned on the tap, and if you were worried about the tap water, then have a filter.
Yeah. That's true.
Been tested. So actually, at the point of use, you turn on the tap, the filter's right there. And then you've got filtered water, and you know that you can trust that over trusting the water just in case something happens. Even though you could just drink the tap water. Yeah. But you might not like the taste. And they're making great improvements in the taste in Malta.
I was going to say, we're talking about quite a lot. I know it's hardcore, and we have to start with the facts. You have to tell people what's going on. We can't hide it, because this is actually happening and it's affecting all of us in different ways. But what's some of the positive things that I guess Malta is trying to do, as well as I know you're speaking about the filter, and we will definitely get onto that. But is there anything that the government is doing, like to try and help the system, or if you know of any?
Yeah, I think they produced two very good initiatives. The carrot and the stick. And the stick was BCRS. So if you're going to use plastic bottles now, you have to put them in a machine, or you don't get your money back, or you can use it to fund animal shelters and all sorts of things, which is great.
Yeah, this is good.
And the carrot is a 40% grant on having your own water purification system at home. So they've got both things there, and that's moved the market for sure. That's moved the market. Okay. BCRS, interesting enough, there was a grant before, it was 15.25%. Right. And that didn't do much, to be honest. Then BCRS came along, and the day BCRS came online, which is the 14th of November 22, the phone was like crazy. People wanting water filters,
I can imagine.
which is and that's fantastic, because that's a change in consumer behaviour with a stick, with pain. And then the grant is really helpful. That encourages people again, and that was brought in once the hullabaloo of BCRS sort of was over the hill by like February, March. then we had that grant in by April, backdated 6 months. So that helps people make that consumer change. And I think that's where governments and regulators, policymakers can really help.
Yes.
By encouraging us to behave different. I wish they would do something about free water at the supermarket.
Yeah. Or water fountains, right?
Water fountains. We're seeing more of those in the hospitals. We're seeing more of them in schools. Fantastic. People get used to knowing that the water's filtered, and that'll help build trust. But I think at the same time, we have to, it'd be useful if we could swerve away from the convenience of the plastic bottle wherever possible. So, for instance, I was reading about a marathon run. I won't tell you which one, and they were proclaiming the sustainability side of it. Don't worry, we collect all the plastic bottles we give you for your drinking water during the run. Which is great. It's better than throwing them away. It's better than them ending up in the environment. For sure.
But they should have said, get your reusable bottle. Don't worry, we'll keep it and refill it for you.
and where we're talking about imperfectly sustainable, as it were, it's little. I really would love to see the day where events like that didn't use plastic bottles but had some other system. And it's difficult when you're on a run because you need to pick your water up on the move. But there are things that work. There are some pods that dissolve in your mouth that are full of water.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Fantastic things.
Oh, that's quite interesting.
So the technology, I think we'll see more of that kind of thing. So where good things are happening, I think it's little things like these pods that you just pop in your mouth. It's a hydration pod.
That's
and
amazing.
You just pop it in your mouth and and stuff like that. Water fountains.
Yes.
Creating water from humidity.
Right.
So water from air.
Yeah. So that for me feels really easy. Maybe I got it wrong, but Malta's full of water. It's humid. Obviously, we know that we have dehumidifiers. But I think that's a way to go, because when my partner, he has the, excuse me saying it wrong, dehumidifier. Can I say it? But
dehumidifier.
Dehumidifier. Can't say it. But he will literally empty it, and it's like liters. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh! And then I asked him, what are you going to do with that? And he's just like, I'll give it to the plants. But he doesn't really know what to do with it, But imagine all these people doing that and then putting it through a filter and drinking it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Or just having a system that takes water from the air and produces you drinking water because it's already filtered.
Yes.
So I've seen some of those start. Rainwater collection here in Malta. We've seen more interest in that, and I think that's really good as well.
Yeah.
And I wrote down another thing that was really good as well. The underground reservoirs abroad. I had to look at my notes there. The underground, they've discovered some underground reservoirs of water underground, like in Sicily, between Sicily and Malta.
Wow.
And I think the last report I read, there are 75 years of water under the sea.
That's so weird, isn't it, to think that?
So that's
under
quite
the sea.
exciting. Under the sea, right?
Wow.
I'm not a geologist, so I don't really understand where, but it's somewhere out there and under the sea. But 75 years.
But they have to drill to get there. That's the issue. And how do they do that? What energy do they use? Petrol, diesel, or whatever they do?
So it's exciting on the one hand, but then there comes, a few you mean more resources are being dug up from under the earth, That almost sounds like fracking.
Yes, that's it. It does sound
and you start going, I don't know, can't we just collect the rain in buckets,
That sounds...
But, there are some things. I think if people are looking at it, solar desalination plants that are small enough that you could have one in a hotel or something like that. I've seen some of those. They're quite interesting.
Yeah.
They're used for emergency supplies of water in different locations.
So what does that mean? What does it look like?
It's a half a container. It is a desalinization plant in half a container powered by a solar panel or two.
Right.
That basically takes water from the sea and turns it into pure drinking water ready for a hotel, and you pop it by a hotel.
That's
so
amazing.
Those are quite interesting.
Are they to implement? Is that being implemented now, or is that?
Well, I don't know all the rules and regulations, but I'm not sure you can just take water from the sea and put it into your own system. I think there's all sorts of licensing and things like that. But I have seen the systems around. And I think things like that, as long as we're looking at anything different to just going to the supermarket and getting plastic bottles.
Yes.
And anything different than just complaining about water, Malta's water, that you can't drink it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we try and focus on sort of some educational things. There's a plastic bottle water that's sold in Malta. It's a foreign water.
Okay.
It's really quite nice. And it comes, I think, 1,700 kilometers from this spa town in the north of between Italy and Switzerland, around that area. And it's really super. It's got a 300-year history to it, etc., whatever it is, hundreds of years history, whatever. And it's lovely, right? But it has the same mineral content as our tap water has now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right. So it's not healthy, any more healthy than your tap water.
See, people don't know this. And I think if people did know this, I think people would probably change their mind slightly about what's going on.
Yeah.
Of their choices. I think it's about, like you said, I'm in marketing. So it's basically, like you said, these big companies marketing that this plastic bottle with water in it is better than what you have coming from your tap.
Right. And it's okay to use it because we recycle it.
Yeah.
Or the new narrative is it's okay to use it because this is made out of recycled PET.
Yes.
Right. Which doesn't make it any better water inside. It just makes it a recycled plastic bottle that's been used again. And in fact, some of the research that comes out suggests that the chemicals leaching out of our PET, which is the recycled PET, are worse than the chemicals coming out of PET. And that particular research suggested that a lot more research is done on our PET before we start saying that it's perfectly okay.
Right. That's overwhelming a little bit.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it does. It does get like that, and I apologize if it's.
So obviously, without tipping into what you do, and what you sell, but why are filters better then? Like, why? Okay, if I was said to you, right, I'm going to use a filter. Why should I get a filter? What is it going to save me money? Is it going to why is that part of the solution?
Well, I would say unfiltered tap water, like tap water that you would just drink and trust straight away, would be best.
Okay.
Right.
That's number one. Yeah.
That'd be number one. Right, because it's right there at the tap, and someone's been looking after it. The next stage from that is if you want to be a bit more careful and you want to make your choices and you want to have some protection, you'd have a water filter. And there are different ways you could do that. You could have a jug. There is those jug filters. You could have something on the tap, or you could have a big system underneath your sink that does a load more things. And the advantage would be you're secure with what you're getting right at the point of delivery. So it's come we have 2,500 kilometers of pipes. And it's come through all the pipes in your house, and that's a whole other topic.
Oh gosh.
Because the water authorities don't control the pipes in your house, but they do control the pipes up to your house. But after it gets into your house, who knows?
Oh wow, that's a good point, because you don't know if there's mold in there. You don't know. I don't want to get into depth, but
so shared apartment blocks.
God.
Right. And so if you have a water filter, like right at the point before you drink it, then it's a bit like cutting your vegetables in the garden.
Yeah.
And then taking them in the house.
Right.
Right. there is so much that you can control, like what you've put in the soil, but you can't control what was there before. You can't control the chemicals in the rain, but you can control what you use on the plant. And then you cut the plant off, you take it into your house, and you either cook it or don't cook it. That's a bit like having a system just before you drink the water.
Right.
That's the main advantage. And leaving minerals in the water. Because you need minerals in your water in order to be able to hydrate properly.
Right. And what are those minerals?
Calcium, magnesium, selenium, potassium, sodium. The same as you would have in an energy drink, except without the extra stuff they have. Or an isotonic drink that you'd have after exercise.
Right. Right. So it filters and gives you minerals as well.
So either filters and puts back minerals in the water, or it doesn't filter them out in the first place.
Right. Okay. Right. Fine.
Because there's different systems. So some will strip all the minerals out and then put them back in.
Right. Okay.
Some will just strip the minerals out and not put them back in, which isn't a great idea. And some filters won't remove the healthy minerals in the first place.
Okay. And do you think we should have this on our showers too? Because I've seen these like units as well that like do the mineral thing. Because I was thinking, obviously, we're talking about what goes in our bodies, but what about outside? You know, as well.
Well, you know, have you ever looked on the label of a shampoo bottle?
Yes, I have. Yes,
I wondered what it is, because like it's a bit scary sometimes. I mean, I think, and then, you know, not getting out of the water thing, but it's if you're going to choose the really healthiest way of a shampoo bar or soap bar or whatever, then if you're using rusty water, then, you know, you're not really helping that much. However, there are plenty of people that don't seem to suffer much in the skin condition side, but there are plenty of people who do suffer skin conditions.
Yes.
So with laundry, with detergents, with water, and so shower filters have become more popular.
Yeah. I'm thinking of getting one as well.
We've had one for a couple of years, and it's it does very well, and people say it makes a difference to their hair and skin conditions. There is some research linking. I've got to write an article actually, and I haven't done it. I think it's lime scale with eczema. So high levels of lime scale with eczema, but I haven't written the article yet, so I haven't done all the research. I've just seen a document that I haven't done yet. So you know, there are things like that, and anecdotally, people have told us about psoriasis, eczema, and those type of conditions, or hair loss.
Yes.
Hair loss, which isn't actually hair loss; it's the hair breaking due to the lime scale making the hair brittle. But it's not actually hair loss; it's hair breaking.
It's because the quality of water that we're getting.
Right. So yes, I mean, it goes to clothing, washing clothing, washing yourself, drinking, and cooking.
Cooking. Yes.
You know, people say, "Oh, don't worry, I drink the tap water. I boil it first."
Yeah, that's a lot of people say that. Yes, you're right.
Well, boiling your tap water makes the contaminants more concentrated in what's left, because you've boiled off some of the water.
Yes.
And the contaminants that have a higher boiling point than water have stayed in the water and are more per volume than what you had before. So boiling water is great for bacteria, but we don't have much problem with bacteria in the water in Malta because of the high level of chlorine.
Right.
But there's no point in boiling your water, because you actually just make it worse.
I didn't know that.
Well, nor did I till I started doing
doing some research. No, I really didn't know that, and that's really interesting. So, okay, that's good to know. I mean, obviously we're thinking and talking more about water usage, but what about water wastage? I mean, do you think, because people do, even me in the shower, I actually have quick showers. I try to have quick showers, but that's also an issue as well, of wasting water, just having your tap running when you're brushing your teeth, and like just having it running to the bar. Yeah.
It's that one. It's brushing your teeth with leaving the tap running.
Yes.
Right? A 2-minute brush of your teeth, if you're timing it with your
Yes.
fancy electric toothbrush or something, and you leave the tap running, that's 25 litres.
Oh my God. When you say it like that, it's a bit crazy.
12 of those plastic bottles, right? Which, if you had to buy them, would be €6 or something.
Yeah, I think more now. Crazy.
And a shower, was it a 5-minute shower is something like 50 litres or something, I think. It's approximately, it's a 3-minute shower is 50 litres. Yeah.
So what could people do at home? So let's look, like what could people do in a more of a micro and like feeling like they're contributing to something better? Like what could they do with let's talk about water usage, water wastage, anything to do with water. What's some of your tips, I guess?
Yeah, I think the air conditioning and dehumidifier water. Use it in the iron or put it on plants.
No, the iron's good.
Pets might like it.
Yes.
And stuff like that. I mean, those are really nice things. Buckets on the balcony when it rains.
Yeah.
You might as well have the rainwater.
But what do you do with that rainwater? It sounds silly, but I just basically water my plants. But what else can you do really with the rainwater?
Without making it too difficult, plants and washing your car.
Yeah, that's it. Washing your car
are probably the big things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you start making it complicated. Most people's apartments, assuming 70% of people live in apartments or something. It does get more difficult, and that's of course one of our challenges. You'd get a big impact by turning off the tap when you're brushing your teeth.
Okay.
And having a 3-minute shower instead of a 20-minute shower.
Yeah. So you said number one was collecting. Oh, it's not collecting water, but you said I can't remember what you said. Sorry, my mind just gone blank.
Teeth brushing, dehumidifiers, and air conditioning.
Air conditioning, collecting that water, rainwater. Now we talk about brushing teeth as well. So reducing it's actually turning the tap off when you're brushing teeth and then only using it when you need it. So that's that. And also you can buy those timers, shower timers. Just go back to stores. You can get those timers that you actually flip. I've seen them. And then you can just put them on your wall and then just time yourself in the shower. I think that's one I've seen, which is quite cool.
And then there's things like, the washing machine, using it on an eco load.
Yes,
as well as the eco temperature, but the eco load size as well, things like that. Using water that you've used in cooking.
Yes.
Instead of just throwing it straight down the sink when you tip your pasta, then, there are uses for that.
That's a good point.
Then, we can mention the toilet. The toilet uses water. If you flush every number one, when you get to my age, you'd be flushing gallons and gallons. So not flushing every number one might be an idea. And in fact, that was one of the tips given to me by not my grandparent, but a grandparent, nearly a relative, not quite, was given to me. That was very standard in their Maltese household. And I was shocked when I first heard it. Then got into the habit of it and handle it perfectly okay.
So that's a good point. So don't flush your number ones and just, I guess you could do it once per day. Let's just say that, just,
Exactly.
Instead of, because I don't know, I don't count how many times I go to the toilet, but I'm guessing I probably go to the toilet probably about 4 or 5 times a day, or even more, maybe. And actually, every time, no, but it's a good point. Actually, every time.
Sorry, I'm laughing because you're obviously not my age, so 4 or 5 times a day would be a luxury.
That's funny, but okay, it depends on the individual. But you're saying plus at least 3 or 4 times, plus 3 or 4
Absolutely.
times. And if you add that up, because I don't know what the stat is, but when you flush your toilet, how many gallons is that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's a lot. I mean, you can do things. You can put like a brick in the cistern, or a plastic bottle full of water in the cistern to reduce the amount of water in a cistern. That would be another way of doing it. But doing that and then not flushing every single one might be okay. And And again, it depends how many people in the household.
Yes, it does.
All sorts of things like that. But it's in. I think that and the teeth cleaning and the showers, they're easy wins.
And also on the tap, you can put those things. I know landlords in Malta are renowned for it, but you can put those water stopper things, like to reduce the
I think
amount.
water saving devices is an interesting market. I mean, it's something I've looked at. Because the way you actually use that water when it's coming out. So you can have water saving shower heads. And they're very effective. They spread the water out more, and add air to the water to propel it out. So they increase the flow a little bit and then spread the water. So it's more same amount of water over a large area. So it feels like you're using less. And then the government had a scheme where they were giving out aerators for kitchen mixers that would do the same thing. So that kind of thing's useful. And simple things like we were talking about water filtration in the kitchen, but having a reusable bottle when you're going around.
100%. And using the fountain.
I was just looking for mine; it's not here. But having a reusable bottle is good. But if you have a reusable bottle, it's really important to clean it.
I was just about to say, my friend's mum, actually, she didn't clean it and she saw mold because she used to put like orange and different types of fruits in there. And it really, I was going to say, really important. You have to clean it. You have to.
There was a horrid piece of research that found that the water bottles they tested in this research were more contaminated than a toilet seat.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Yeah, no, it's awful. It makes you think, doesn't it? So do clean your water bottles with soap and water and then let them dry out. It's a very good idea. Don't use plastic bottles.
Okay. What, glass or?
Don't use a plastic bottle that you've already had your single shot of water and carry that around and refill it.
People do that a lot. A lot.
Yeah, no, full of microplastics. The research has been on that. Every time you unscrew the lid, you're getting more microplastics in the water. And of course, you're squeezing the bottle, which then, that puts all the chemicals in it. So no, it's probably not a great idea. And even those sports bottles, those branded sports bottles.
Yes.
There's some not very nice research coming out of Denmark on that a couple of years ago. The more you use them, the more chemicals go into your water. So they're not great either. So stainless steel or glass?
Stainless steel or glass, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And me and my partner was looking at something like this, actually. We looked at the possibility of clay water bottles, actual clay. And if you look it up, it's quite interesting. There are clay ones, but I said it's quite heavy. Obviously, it absorbs the water, but basically you line it with like a glaze, and it keeps it cool. And so something might be
for in that house, not as a reusable one to carry around, but in
a reusable one to carry around.
Really? Right. Yeah, I mean, terracotta urn is probably used. We call in ancient times to store water or wine. I mean, scaled down to carry around would probably be quite cool.
Yeah, so that was something that we saw. And if we were going to put a filter in, for example, just for clean water, how much will I save a year then? Let's say that. On water.
Well, if you were using a pack of water, one 6-pack a week, right? That's going to cost you 150 euros a year.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas a pack of filters from someone like us would be 69 euros.
Right.
So it'd save you 100 euros a year with 1 pack a week.
Yeah.
Now, if you were getting 1 free pack from the supermarket, because you could use your points instead of having the water to get food, it would be worth you €1.47, which means you would break even between buying filters and having 1 free pack of water a week.
But this is all dependent on how many people are in the house. If you remember to redeem your voucher, because I forget sometimes, and if everybody notices, it's valid for a certain amount of time.
Absolutely.
You can't just leave it and for another year. And I always forget to do, I've got it on, like, oh my God, I forgot to bring my voucher. So all these different variables coming into play, it's not as easy as, I'll get some money back.
And all the effort, you've got to pay the BCRS deposit on your free water, and you've got to carry it. So like a family that was using, let's say a family is using they go shopping and they get 4 free packs a week.
Yeah.
Right. The equivalent of that's the equivalent of €6 a week. That's €300 a year that they could spend on food.
Yeah.
And buy filters of €69 a year, and they'll have enough water as much as they want. So, economically it doesn't make sense, but it's because the value of a plastic bottle has been built up to represent something, which is like 50 cents or something, or €3 a pack. Your voucher feels like €3.
Yes.
But it's not. You're not getting €3 worth of water, because you're getting the cheapest water you can possibly get. Which is only going to be filtered tap water anyway. I mean, it is just filtered tap water anyway. One of the largest bottling companies came out and confirmed that all of their plastic bottled water is tap water. Don't worry, we don't use groundwater, they said. We don't use groundwater because it's contaminated, and it'd be very bad to use groundwater. We use tap water when we pay for it. Which is great, because in your 2-litre plastic bottle of water, there is 0.0003 of a cent in your 50-cent plastic bottle. It's great. So no profit margin there then.
But is that what is table water a glorified way of saying tap water?
It is tap water.
Yeah, right.
It is. It's filtered tap water. Unless it's table water, let's say, that's come from abroad and they call it mineral water.
Okay.
So table water is either tap water or groundwater that's been filtered.
Right. Okay.
Mineral water comes from a natural spring or mineral of some kind of source.
Okay.
And spring water, and there are regulations around that.
Yeah. Wow, I've definitely learned a lot today. There's a lot that I need to think about personally, because I can't, this is not sustainable, me buying bottled water, especially when I'm all about sustainability. But it's actually not sustainable because, one, I can't be bothered to carry it upstairs. My lift is not working at the moment for my apartment. 2, I am thinking about microplastics. I'm thinking about the future. And 3, like you said, I feel like the water bottles are glorified water, like glorified water, but actually it's from the tap, and knowing that information, for me, the solution would be looking at alternative solutions like filter, or maybe looking at, the ways that I can reduce that, or just using the tap, like you said, just actually running water from my tap. So, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's. I think the cultural change has begun towards tap water in Malta. So using water from the tap, either with or without a filter.
Yeah.
And I think that's very positive.
Yeah.
I think it's hugely positive, really. And it's built up through a number of factors, like you described. The convenience that is no longer convenient because it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
The financial aspects,
Yeah.
and then the concerns about these other things that are now starting to come out are all pointing towards, well, maybe it's a time for a change.
Yes. Yeah. And what type of customers do you get? Like, what kind of people or stories do you hear, or what kind of person, I'm guessing it can be either individuals or businesses, but why have they made the change? What have they said? Like, what's their background on that?
Oh, gosh. I've had some lovely stories, to be honest. I mean, I remember going to this, in the early days, I used to go round to almost every house and deliver it and stuff like that. And there was this lovely family in a house I can't remember quite where it was Massa or Hamrun or something like that. Yeah. And they used to get a pallet of plastic bottles delivered and put in the front room, all sort of stacked up, because it was cheaper to buy them in that sort of quantity.
Yeah.
And they saved an absolute fortune and couldn't believe it. And it was one of those times when you go into a house and you fit the tap and you say, well, go on, give it a go. What do you think?
Yeah.
And they go, it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of beautiful
That's
because they see the saving of the money at
yes.
that point. But a lot of people would say to me things like, it just doesn't feel right, all these plastic bottles. So this was before
Yeah.
BCRS, 6 bags of recycling.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they haven't got 6 bags of recycling. They've got like maybe 1 or half or something
Yes.
a week. And they would say things like, it never felt right.
Yeah.
But you carry on doing it because there aren't so many options, or
Exactly.
you haven't learned about the options, or you don't know them, or you're
Yeah.
not yet incentivized to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it was really nice when BCRS started, and that was a real kicker, where people are going, oh, I can't stand this anymore. Just give me something,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
That was lovely. And then you've got like elderly people
Yeah.
who don't want to carry the stuff up the stairs. They're on the
That's
second or
it.
third floor of a house without a lift. Mobility,
Yeah.
constricted people, people with constricted mobility, all sorts of things
Different stories.
like that. And it's been nice, like people buying it for their parents.
Yeah.
We
That's
have
nice.
we have some units in one of the, I won't say which one, but one of the large elderly homes
Okay.
here in Malta. We have one of the relatives bought one for one of the rooms, and
Right.
then somebody else bought one, and then somebody else bought one,
Yeah.
and that's really neat because otherwise they're taking plastic bottles in
Yep.
to their relatives that are in the home, and that was kind of beautiful.
That's nice. That's a lovely story, actually. That's lovely.
Yeah, all little things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when we started, it was like very much the people who were sort of switched on to eco consciousness or eco friendly, and now it's not. It's gone way outside that, and it's anybody.
Yeah.
Couples, single people, families, shared houses, all sorts really. We do ask people what sort of household it is, and we don't ask ages or anything like that, but what sort of household. And the spread is actually quite sort of normal, which is quite interesting, really. I find that all of that quite interesting. So yeah, I think there's a shift, and there's more opening towards doing something that's different. It's not just the same old plastic bottles. At the same time, I've seen people in car parks of supermarkets driving close to the door so they can take the plastic bag, 6 packs out of the trolley.
Crazy.
But I mean, like more 6 packs than any of the other food. It's just.
It's crazy, wow. And also the plastic that it's wrapped in. You have to remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is single use. You can't recycle that. So there's so many things around this, but yeah, I'm definitely going to talk to my partner tonight about it because it's something to think about. And so I thank you for giving us the knowledge about this. So we've only got about 10 minutes left. It's been a really, really insightful conversation so far. But I want to kind of talk about yourself, so people can get to know and understand, what inspired you and stuff. So first of all, who are you? Why did you move to Malta? Why did you move to Malta? Let's start there.
Yeah, I came to Malta 14 years ago. I was previously working in the financial services industry.
Okay, interesting.
Obviously, I didn't have this hair at that point. And I ceased that occupation in 2018, and I was literally looking for something else to do.
Right.
And I just took some time off to think what I wanted to do. And in around 2019, I think 2020, just at the beginning, I was looking for a sustainable water filter because I needed a water filter in my flat where I was because the other one had broken.
Okay.
And I was looking for something sustainable. I didn't want something where you were throwing away as much plastic as you were saving.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the filter units were like wrapped in plastic. And I came across this company. I bought their filter. I stuck it on my tap. I loved it. And And then I emailed them and said, I think this would work in Malta.
Yeah.
And we were one of the earlier distributors for them, and they're now distributed in like 30 different countries and stuff like that. And yeah, I've had great fun with it.
Yeah. And have you always been kind of sustainable, or is this an up and down? What's your sustainable journey? Is it always up and down? Is it like actually you've had this thought in your mind, I need to be conscious about the environment, about people, planet, etc.?
I think it's been building over the years that I've been here. It started a little bit before. I lived in Portugal before that, and then before that the UK. And I was growing vegetables in Portugal, not very successfully.
It's hard.
And I think there were some changes of life as I got older, 40s and then 50s. And I trained a bit to be a yoga instructor and meditation teacher and stuff like that. And I think that was all sort of building. And I went through quite a lot of process about getting rid of a lot of stuff. Less possessions, wardrobe types of material, clothing, shoes. I went vegan. I was vegan for a while. Vegetarian for longer. And now
flexitarian.
I don't know, what do you call it? I don't know. I just try and be more sustainable, but I don't. I'm probably more vegan than anything else. But you can't say more vegan because people have a but imperfectly not eating at all very much meat or not very much processed food. But I find that's a huge area of challenge for me.
Being vegan.
The food.
Well, I did have it.
I'm a snack and anything that's bad for you type person. And it's actually it's a real challenge to be sustainable with that. I wish I lived in a field and all I had was what grew from the field and I didn't have access to anything else. If I didn't have access to it, I'm fine. It's when I have access to it that is the problem.
That's a lot of people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so and things like shampoos and soaps. Bars. It's been an interesting journey. Toothpastes has been an interesting journey. All sorts of things like that. It's you have to find your own way and test a few things. Some things I just couldn't carry on doing, and other things I'm really quite sustainable. We don't have much black bag waste at all. Probably a bag every couple of months. Maybe.
That's great.
Yeah, we have no organic waste because we compost everything.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Recycling, cardboard and paper mostly. So it feels like a decent balance. But it's been quite a journey, really. It's always trying to get a bit better.
It is difficult. It's very difficult. It can be anyway. And just to finish off, I know you mentioned it earlier actually when we were talking, but I'm trying to collect some information about people and just see where some of the, where they collect their information from about sustainability. And how I became a bit sustainable, my journey was, I mentioned that in my introduction or the teaser of the Green Diary, this podcast. But my inspiration comes from my grandma because I believe that she was sustainable without even knowing she's sustainable because of the time, a lot of everybody because of the time, sometimes because of not having enough money. So you have to be sustainable. It kind of forces you to be sustainable. But just give us one tip or one thing that an elder person or a grandparent or someone that was older than you. And the reason why it's older, because I feel like I'm seeing a pattern here, but what's one tip that someone has taught you about sustainability without even knowing it's sustainable and just said, it's a tip.
I'll go for the not flushing the number ones because it was a grandmotherly type person in Malta, and it was absolutely normal for them not to do it. They hadn't done it in their house for years, and it was nothing about water conservation from a scarcity point of view. It's just not wasting it. And I think Malta has a lot to offer on that, because it's an island, so culturally not wasting things, and remaking things is absolutely integrated in a wonderful way that I think has been harnessed or could be harnessed in a really great way. So when we talk about plastic bottles, for instance, quite often some people of a certain age will refer back to when we used to have a glass bottle distribution system.
Wow.
That was much better until the EU came along. Now, I don't know whether it has any factual basis or not, but this is what the story gets told. Right. Up until the EU, we used glass bottles. Then the EU came along, we used plastic bottles. And if it wasn't for the EU, we'd carry on using glass bottles. And it's interesting, because why don't we go back to some things like that, which would be great.
Exactly. Phil, it's been great having you on here, talk about just insights into water, because it's World Water Day as well. It's important to talk about these things and have the conversation around important issues for us as human beings. Actually it's everybody's problem. That's basically what I'm getting at, is everybody's problem, and we have to work together to solve it. So where can people find you?
They can find us at www.tapwater.mt, and if I just pop that on the screen, so that's where people can find us, www.tapwater.mt. You can find out all about the water filters there, and for our viewers and readers, I'll remind you where you can find Jay with some more sustainability tips and stories from people's success at the Green Diary. And thank you for letting me do this, because it's nice, and I wish you well with your regular podcast, which I'll be tuning into. And maybe you'll do a guest blog at some point, especially encouraging people to be, back to just a few little steps. Little steps each time.
You don't have to be perfect at all.
Yeah, how wonderful.
Thank you so much, Phil. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you very much.